hope you're having a great day. For those of you that have never tuned into one of my videos, my name is Danae and I am in Iowa, Zone 5, right on the cusp between 5A and 5B. So I kind of consider myself both. And in 2019, I started a cut flower garden on a 1/4 acre, and I'm trying to grow that 1/4 acre cut flower garden into a cut flower farm. So this year I have grown to a 1/2 acre. So now in 2022, all of my videos are going to be about growing on a 1/2 acre flower farm. Or if you have huge farms and you do like 10 acres of flowers, you can call mine a flower garden. But today I'm going to be going over Snapdragons. So I have made a video on how I do seed starting, and what I found in 2021 as I was going through, I was like, this is how you start a Lisianthus seed. This is how you start a Snapdragon seed. And they're all the same. So not exactly the same. There's a few things that differ, like does it need light to germinate? What temperature does it require to germinate? But the actual process of filling up your trays with moistened soil and putting the seed on the top of the soil or down like a 1/4 inch, like that whole process is pretty much the same. I actually got bored editing my videos, watching me do the same thing all the time, and I thought, oh my gosh, like people watching my videos, this has to bore them. So if they come on and they want to see a video about starting Snapdragon seeds, maybe I should give some information about what I've done with Snapdragons, what I've learned. And then if you want to see the seed starting process, I did make a short 2-minute video. So you can click right here, and this is how you start seeds if they need light to germinate. It's a quick 2-minute video, very informational on how I start seeds, and it's how I start all of my seeds right now because I start them in my basement under grow lights. And so today we're talking all about Snapdragons, and I think, like, I could be wrong here. I did a Google pronunciation search, and there are YouTube videos that are different, and then there's the Google one. So I'm going to turn up my speakers and play it really quick.
Antirrhinum. Antirrhinum.
Antirrhinum. So last year I started Snapdragon seeds inside, and then I put them all out into my field, and that was it. I did not do any succession plantings of Snapdragons. I didn't really know about the different seasonal zones and flowering times. I just bought some Snapdragons, I put them in my field, and when they came up, they were beautiful. So another thing, I'm going to put some pictures of my Snapdragons. If I grew a variety, I'll try to put them up in this video. They were beautiful, and they actually lasted a long time. Like, they went a long time in the season, and then when it got really, really hot out, they kind of fizzled out. And then, like, I had some other Snapdragons that were like pretty small. I think they were the Madame Butterfly series. All of a sudden, like in the fall, they started coming up, and my other Snapdragons started blooming again. So I had Snapdragons most of the season, and I love them. Like, you can do bouquets with Snapdragons. They look awesome in any kind of arrangement. They give you that big spiky look, and they're really pretty. So I'm definitely going with them again, but I did a lot more studying about them, and I'm just going to go through a few of the things with you that I've learned about Snapdragons and what I'm going to do differently this year from knowing like what went wrong last year. Okay, so the Snapdragons are going to flower at different times in the season: winter, spring, summer, and fall. And Snapdragons have been assigned different groups, where group 1 flowers in the winter. And now group 2, they're going to flower in the spring and in the fall, because like the temperature and the conditions are right in both the spring and the fall for group 2. Group 3 is going to flower in between spring and summer, like kind of the end of spring, beginning of summer, but also the end of summer, beginning of fall. And group 4 flowers in the summer, in the heat of the summer. So they like the summer heat. Okay, so the Costa and Chantilly series are assigned to groups 1 and 2. So I can kind of throw out winter, because in Iowa, nothing's going to be going here in the winter. But since those 2 series fall into groups 1 and 2, that means that I can plant them here in Iowa as a group 2. So they are going to flower for me in the spring and the fall. So when I start this next series of seed starting, I'm going to start my groups 1 and 2 so that I have flowers that can bloom in the spring. Potomac and Rocket, they're going to start blooming at the end of the spring and then into the summer, and then they're going to kind of fizzle out, and then at the end of the summer going into fall, they're going to start blooming again. And then the Madame Butterfly doesn't really have a group assigned, and I believe that is the one that I saw come up in the fall. So I'm going to start them today, and then I'm going to succession plant them every 3 weeks until August 1st, because it takes them about 8 weeks to bloom, and it starts getting really cold and frosting and stuff in October, which some of these might be able to take that. So maybe I'll have Snapdragons, you know, October, November. But I'm going to go ahead and stop in August because more than likely they're not going to last much longer or bloom much longer than that. But we will see. It'll be a nice test this year. So that gives me 7 successions of Snapdragons. So for my first and second succession, I'm going to do my groups 1 and 2. And then for my last 6th and 7th succession, I'm also going to do groups 1 and 2. And then for my 3rd, 4th, and 5th successions, I'm going to do all my 3rd and my group 3 and 4 Snapdragons. So for the first 3 successions, I'm going to be doing these. And since I have 7 successions, I need to take those 390 plants that'll fit in that 6-foot area and divide that by 7. So since I have 7 in this, that means I need about 10, a few more than 10. So I'll do about 10 of each one of these types in one tray. So that means each succession, I need 55 plants. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill a 72 plug tray because I'm going to have some failure, you know, some like not do so good. And if I end up with extras, I can throw them around my yard or give them to a friend. So not a big deal. So each succession, I'm only going to do 1 tray. So I'm going to do 1 tray today, then I'll do 1 tray in 3 weeks, and then another tray 3 weeks from then, and I'm just going to keep it going. So now, even though I have thousands of seeds, and I do plan on planting a lot of these, it's not as big a project. I just need to plant 1 tray, 10 of each types of seeds today, and now 3 weeks from now, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to plant 10 more of each one, but that's going to give me 72 plants. So, you know, and then 3 weeks later, these are still, the first succession are still going to be blooming and still be good. And then I'm going to have another start flushing. So I should have 72 plants. And if I pinch those, now you're talking about, you know, if you get 3 or 4 more blooms or 5 blooms per plant, now you're looking at 350 flowers each time. So I'm going to see how this works, and if I notice I'm running out or anything like that, I'll bump up my successions through the season. Okay, so on the plot, if you remember when I made out the plot earlier in this year, I have allotted for 60 feet lengthways by 4 feet of Snapdragons. So that means I get 13 Snapdragons every 2 feet because I'm putting the Snapdragons 9 inches apart. So that gives me 390 Snapdragons in my field for the entire season. So that's my plan on how I'm going to tackle my Snapdragons this year. I feel really good about it. So stay tuned and we'll see how it goes. So there are 3 different types of blooms on each of these Snapdragons. So there's like an open-faced bloom, an azalea bloom, and the traditional bloom. So last year, I had some open-faced blooms that I didn't care for. Maybe I just didn't grow them or they didn't meet their potential, but I just wasn't that impressed by them. So this year, I am doing all of the traditional type spiked Snapdragons, except for the Madame Butterfly series, and that is the azalea type blooms. So we'll see how that goes. Last year, I grew my Snapdragons as an annual. I ripped them out of the ground when the season was done. I am planning on doing that again this year. Maybe as I get further along and get tunnels, or maybe even by the end of the year, I'll decide to try to overwinter them, because Snapdragons can be overwintered down to zone 5, but you have to put some kind of tunnel or mulch layer or something on them to keep them warm. And I think Iowa is just so all over the place with the weather. And I do think maybe they will reseed themselves and then they'll come up, but I want to have really beautiful flowers. So maybe I can try it, and next year if I grow to another like 3/4 of an acre or an acre flower field, I could leave the row of 60 and see what happens with them and then start some, but I just never want to be out of them. So they can be perennial down to zone 5 if you take the right care of them, but I'm growing them as an annual. But Snapdragons do prefer cooler weather. There are some varieties, like I said earlier, that will be blooming in the summer, but they can even take a light frost. So like last year, I didn't believe it. I was like, and I was really worried, and I put them out into the field in April instead of waiting until our last frost date in May. And then it was going to get so cold, and I was running out there, and I was like covering them with a frost cloth. I was like, I don't want them to die. And they were fine. And I don't know, I doubt it has anything to do with the frost cloth, because it says they can take a light frost. And then I put the frost cloth over them, and they were fine. So I'll probably try to get them out, because there's so many things that can't be planted out until after the first frost date. So this is a plant I can get out like a month earlier, or put it in the ground and then just take care of it until there's no danger of frost. I do use drip irrigation. So if it gets dry here in Iowa or we haven't gotten enough rain, I do have drip that'll be running to all of these plants. So that's recommended. You can overhead water them, but it can knock off the blooms and stuff. So it's recommended to use drip irrigation. And I'm starting Snapdragons today because they need 8 to 10 weeks. So it's March 1st and May 15th is my last frost date. I probably could have started them a little bit earlier, and maybe next year I'll mark on my calendar that if I'm going to put them in the ground in April, maybe I could start them even earlier. But they need 8 to 10 weeks like in a grow space before you plant them out into your field. The germination should occur in 7 to 14 days. You should see a little bit of green popping up. And the temperature should always be steady between 70 and 75. So now I'm going to have to start playing a little bit with my temperature, because I've been keeping it really cool for my Lisianthus, and now I'm going to have to make sure my temperature is staying up to at least 70. So I think what I'm going to use this time is I'm going to keep my heat mats right at a 70 and put my Snapdragons on them. So once the true leaves develop, which takes about 21 days, 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, I should start seeing some true leaves. So after I see those first true leaves appear, so I'm going to get them all planted like I showed you in my video. And then in about 3 weeks, I should start seeing those first true leaves appear. And at that time, you want to kind of start letting them dry out a little bit, because that promotes root growth. They're going to start growing the roots down to find that water. So you kind of want to like lighten up your watering after that period in time. And then in about 8 weeks, I will start taking my Snapdragons outside and introducing them to light, the process of hardening off. You will see that. And then I'll be putting them in the field. And I do pinch my Snapdragons. I have a great video on that. So you can follow it and look at the one I did last year. I'll be doing the same thing this year. So I pinched a lot of my Snapdragons because I was following along and like reading, like watching YouTube tutorials and like seeing what I needed to do with these plants, right? To get like the most flowers or whatever. And so I was pinching them, but then I thought, well, maybe I'm not going to pinch some of my Snapdragons, and I'm going to see what happens with them. And what I noticed is that I actually got thicker, longer stems with like way like big, beautiful flowers. I did a little bit of research and I went to some of the experts, and I got this document that I'm going to read from Johnny's Seed Company. So it says, for a bushier plant that produces more flower-producing side branches, pinch young plants back by half their height when plants have formed 4 to 6 leaves or are approximately 3 to 4 inches tall. Alternately, plants can also be pinched at the time of transplanting. Either way, pinching will delay the crop time, so they're not going to flower as soon by a few weeks. Place these plants at a spacing of 6 to 12 inches apart. For a single stem, 1 cut flower, do not pinch the plants and transplant at a tighter spacing of 4 inch by 4 inch. This results in a strong stem with superior length and bloom quality. flowering is faster and earlier than plants that were pinched. So that's pretty interesting to know, because I did like following a lot of other people, and like I read countless books. I read a lot of like the Florette books. She's awesome. Love her. She does recommend the pinching, and I think that's because you get a lot more blooms, so you can like do a lot more bouquets, like farm bouquets. So maybe it depends on who you're selling to. Like I do farmers markets and in-town bouquets, and my pinch snapdragons worked great because I didn't need some like huge spike with this huge flower. But I could see my florist wanting something like that. Like, because if they're doing huge wedding arrangements or huge wedding bouquets and things like that, they might want those big sturdy stems. So maybe this year I'll do kind of a test, and maybe I'll do it again where I put them closer together, because I put them all 9 inches by 9 inches last year. So maybe I'll just take maybe a 10-foot section and take some of my fabric that's 6 inches apart. It does say 4 inches, but I don't have any fabric that has been burnt for 4 inches, and I don't even have a template. So maybe I'll just try a few 6 inches apart and just do a comparison and see which snapdragons look or do better. That's one of the fun things about having a cut flower garden or a cut flower farm. You can experiment, you can test, you can see what things work for you in your area and in your soil. If you want to see the process, I'm going to try to make videos to keep you up to date on all of my plants and what I'm doing. And I'm starting snapdragons today. I think I've got bells of Ireland. I mean, you guys saw my whole list. It looks like I have delphinium. I have so many seeds to start. So I'll be trying to do videos and keep you updated on how I'm going to fill up this half-acre flower farm. I hope that you learned a little bit about snapdragons today, and I hope you're having a fantastic day.